2014, the first batch of illegal miners were arrested with excavator in the Apapama Forest Reserve. Some Chinese and Ghanaians. And then this continued into 2015, 2016, and the rest we all know. Currently, I think in May, we made a presentation at the press. Out of our 288 forest reserves, 34 of them have issues with illegal mining. A number of them with excavators. I think since May, 2 more have come to join, so we are now around 36 forest reserves.
36.
As a commission, we are not trained soldiers. We go to school to learn how to conserve, how to protect to an extent. But the war, and I'll call it a war, has gotten to a point where the commission is not adequately positioned to fight the challenge, because you have armed gangs, armed groups who, unlike before, where the forestry team comes over, will flee, are now prepared to engage them. I mean, I'm sure you've all been hearing or heard the news, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, where there was a shooting incident around Mankranso in Ashanti region, in the Disiri Forest Reserve. These are officers who had gone to enforce law and order. They saw an excavator and they were demobilizing it. And then out of the bush, they were ambushed with a gang coming with knives, guns, shooting at them, and they had to defend themselves.
And who were behind it?
It's difficult to say. I mean, I believe in that particular case, some of them wanted us to believe they were actually conducting, how do you call it? Community mining.
Okay.
Of course, that cannot be. Just last week, you also heard about a situation where a chief at Mansi and 9 others were arrested at the Anyasu East Forest Reserve near Diasu, Bibiani Forest District. And sometimes you wonder how these things have been allowed to fester for this long. You have a forestry commission who, until last year, November, at least had the support of the military to be able to engage these armed thugs. Last year, November 1st, the military detachment was withdrawn. So, I mean, I'm the executive director of the Forest Services Division. It's my task.
Just so we know, on whose orders?
I wouldn't know.
The Forest Commission was not communicated to?
No, we're told they were undertaking some exercise to clean up the system because there were some lapses. And they are not back yet. We've been persistently asking for that support. So sometimes you feel like your hands have been tied behind you and be thrown into a river asked to swim. And as responsible leaders, it's sometimes very difficult to throw your men out there in harm's way when you know they are not well equipped. What we have are forest guards who spend 3 weeks at a military camp to undergo some military training. That's basically all. And you have some of these people who are really well armed and, I mean, to the teeth. So the commission is doing a lot. I can tell you that since January, through the efforts of our forest guards and these rapid response teams that were trained, 83 excavators have been demobilized in forest reserves. Indeed, we've gone to court to even seek a court order to have them conscripted so that we can sell them as scrap. We have arrested 198 persons since January, out of which we've been able to get 24 convictions.
All in our forest reserves?
All in forest reserve. All I'm talking about is within forest reserves.
Forest reserves, okay.
We have different structures that have been demolished, generators and pumping machines. I mean, these are guys, I mean, I will always doff my hat off for them. And the recent operation at Mankranso, which was quite well circulated, I mean, they almost lost their lives. I mean, it was a face-to-face, tussle where some guns were taken from them. People tried to shoot at them. It was such a close combat.
Okay.
So the commission is not resting on its oars, but we need support. We need support. We need the support of the military that our taxpayers' money is funding. Thank you.
Well, let me bring in Dr. Kenneth Ashibe. He's been with us in this fight from the very onset, I should say. And today we are hearing about the conviction of Aisha Wang is something that we've been talking about for some time now. Does it give you the inclination that we are getting there, at least? Many have said it's not enough, but really, for you, Dr. Kenneth Ashibe, with that news coming in, and also it's coming at a time that we're also having this dialogue, really, are we getting there when it comes to that? Also seeing poison for gold?
Well, thank you very much. I think one of the points that have to be made is about this lady judge that's handling this case. Right from the onset, considering Aisha Wang as a flight risk, the positions she took, and the fact that she was very nationalistic in the doing of her job, you just have to position her against the judge. I think it was one quest in Takwa, who prosecuted, on whose court they prosecuted some 4 Chinese people, and he, in sentencing these foreigners, sentenced them to the minimum sentence for Ghanaians. You know, just a fine of 2,400 Ghana cedis. And seeing that finally we have got some conviction. My only pain is that apparently when we rearrested Aisha Wang, we still were prosecuting her under the old law. And my question I ask is that when she was rearrested, coming back again, was there, I think that was one of the charges. And then did she not get involved in any mining activity for which then the charges should have been under the current punishment regime? So yes, it's great that we've seen some prosecution of somebody who is not just one of those people we find in the forest reserves, and we've been able to get to the point where we're getting to. And I agree with Nana when he talks about getting to the basis and finding out why this thing is happening. But and again, when Doc talks about the fact that we're going to go into an election next year, and if you look at what has happened, the sinusoidal dances we've been doing, and we are confronted with such grave challenges as a country, but I don't think we are passionate enough. And the Forestry Commission, unfortunately, I don't believe you're doing enough, you know, to really be able to resolve the issues. Nana too as well. I think all of us, and even all of us as citizens, but those who are actually being put in power, you know, to be able to deal with it. When excavators are seized, you know, excavators are, even for your mobile phones, we can trace back up to the IMEI number and be able to trace that back to you. So why is it that those people who have brought in all of these excavators, the weapons of terrorism that are using them, have you seen us go after any of them? Why is it that we're sitting here up till today? The Minister for Land and Natural Resources said Akonta mining was involved in an illegality. What has happened to that? I can tell you, go to when Erastus was taken to court by Heritage Imperial. In their court documents, they talked about the fact that they were involved in a mining activity. We wrote to the EPA. The EPA said they did not have the permit to do that. So why is it that people like this were not dealing with that? You see, so when we don't deal with the root causes of the challenges that face us and keep on dealing with just the symptoms, unfortunately, we will be mining in 13 regions, but by the time we see it, our very existence would be gone. We forget that Ghana, we are not the first Ghana. The first Ghana went into extinction. And the way we are going, we are also going to go into extinction. It is something we have planned. It is something we are engineering. It's something we are doing. And we're going to get there. You know? And so I think that for all of you who sit in Accra, all of you who sit in your comfort zones, and the thing that this thing is not about you, it's not about your survival, the time for us to say no is now. You know, as middle class, one of the things we've all agreed with is to say that we will do elections. And because of that, we do it.
Yeah.
If all of us at middle class decide that we'll work together with everybody to ensure, then we won't sit. and allow the environmental ministry to take that law to that bill to Parliament and decide that we are going to allow mining, find a way of mining in forest reserves, places of significant biodiversity areas. It just tells you of our psyche as a people. That what is it that is important to us? I know that when you go to war and you poison the water of your enemy, that is considered as a grave war crime. Mm-hmm. I wonder what is there when we as a people decide to poison our own water. So I am comforted a bit by this. But would it be only a flash in the pan? Would it be an exception? Unfortunately, as a student of social science, the evidence I see tells that this thing, we are not really going to solve it.
We hope not. But the issue about Aisha 1, Dr. Bowen, I'll come to you shortly. We also have Dr. Kwabena Mensah on Zoom as well. But I would quickly want to take the thoughts of Yunus Afuseni on the Aisha 1 bit, because there's a thoughts about going after the financiers. You heard Dr. Ashigbe talk about the fact that even your phones, you can trace it to those who actually owns it. But in the case of these excavators, we are not hearing what's going on. We only hear that it's been destroyed amongst others. But with the sentencing of Aisha 1, Professor Frimpong-Boateng, I'll pick your thoughts also on Aisha 1 and whether this sentencing is deterrent enough when it comes to going after the real kingpins or queenpins behind it. My ushers will come for this microphone and then we give it to Honorable Yunus Afuseni. Okay, he's already mic'd, so we can hear you, Honorable Yunus Afuseni, on this.
Well, thank you so very much. I think the Aisha 1's case is, and the conviction and sentence is another vivid demonstration of our lack of commitment in fighting this canker. Clearly, like Dr. Ken Ashigbe has said, the first arrest of Aisha 1 was under a legal regime that imposed or that criminalized illegal mining and imposed a sentence that was higher than 4.5 years. Indeed, it is precisely because when we were at the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, we realized that the sentencing regime was so minimal that it wasn't deterrent enough, and we needed to do something about that. And that's why we went back to Parliament to have that the sentencing regime increased to serve as a deterrent. Now, but you see, let me just add my own thoughts. We seem to be suggesting, and listening to Minerals Commission and Forestry Commission, we seem to be suggesting that this canker can be tolerated. Especially listening to Mr. Mataisi. But it cannot be tolerated. It cannot. You see, there's a growing movement in the world. What we've seen Erasmus do, there's a growing movement that environmental crimes are crimes against humanity. You can't justify that on the basis of exploitation of minerals. You can't. The Prof just showed a picture of a woman who lost the life and the baby by reason of what? Illegal mining. So all of us must live here very clear in our minds. And 2 weeks ago, I was reading something about Fuji. They decided that they didn't want any mining and that they wanted sustainable. They said they didn't want mining. Mm-hmm. We must all live here knowing and accepting that, look, and Ken Ashigbe has put it so simply. Maybe we will not, maybe not during our lifetime, we will have natural deaths. But we are moving towards extinction. This canker is attacking our very existence. It's attacking our economy. Professor has demonstrated that. Attacking our economy. It's exposing us to dangers that we can quantify. But the solution is there. Forestry Commission. You mean you have no local representatives in the various areas? You mean you can't collaborate with the district assemblies? You mean the chief executive doesn't show any interest in fighting illegal activities in the forest reserves? You mean if you report to the police, they won't take action? We know why they are not taking action, because some of your officers are complicit. So you don't report.
Okay.
Don't report. But yes, Aisha won, and it is not only Aisha won, Ken knows.
But hearing the judge, wishing that you could have imposed a stiffer sanction.
As an officer of the court, I wouldn't toe the line of the special prosecutor.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it there on that. But,
but clearly, we have a bigger problem that we all need to confront, and confront with the determination that other countries have exhibited. Thank you.
Thank you. Prof, quickly on the Aisha Wang bit and whether it is deterrent enough in terms of going after the key financiers of this illegal mining. I'll take your brief comments on that, then we can go on Zoom and then come to Dr. Bourne.
I believe that the law was changed, and the minimum sentence was supposed to be 15 years. So that's what I know. Thank you.
So it should have been 15 years instead of what we had?
Minimum.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Frimpong, Professor Frimpong Boateng, thank you. I'll come to you shortly, Professor Tampini. I really need your thoughts on this, knowing that you had a hand in producing poison for gold. But Dr. Bourne, we've heard about catastrophe. Your thing is working as well. And what would be your own description of what you've also seen so far?
Well, thank you very much. I think I agree. We are heading towards an abyss. We are heading towards disaster. I think I heard one of my panel members said it's an ecological disaster. I would rather describe it as a socio-ecological disaster, for the very reasons that we just talked about, some of which we saw on the screen, where ecological problems have become human problems. So we are actually we are not even heading towards, we are in an ecological disaster. So that is one thing. The other thing, I think I had Senior Cameron Dodu talk about, we need to call illegal mining, galamsey, the way. I think we are not doing ourselves any good if we hide behind these terminologies of illegal mining, irresponsible mining, sustainable mining, unsustainable mining. The reality is, not too long ago, galamsey was not a polite word. You know, when you mention galamsey, you hide to say it. Today, we do have students who come to, I'm at the University of Ghana, students who come to our programs and describe themselves as former galamseyers with some pride. You know, they feel good to describe themselves as former galamseyers, so we should respect them that they were former galamseyers and they have converted. So we need to, you know, appreciate them. The reality is, galamsey is a crime against the country. And I heard Dr. Ashibe talk about, it's a kind of war. It's a national security issue. And by the way, Aisha Wang was convicted today, but Major Mahama's people, the people who killed him, we haven't had any conviction yet. We haven't had any conviction yet. And that was when we had attempted to turn the whole galamsey issue as a national security problem, send our military people there. One of them was killed, unfortunately, and up to today, we don't even have justice for him. That is, just by the way, the problem we face is a governance failure and a collective action failure. Governance failure because obviously we do have our institutions which are supposed to be doing what they have to do, and they either can't do it or are not doing it. We also have collective action failure because we, the people, are not angry enough. In fact, I was excited when Ken Ashibe and his group took over the fight. And at that point, me too, Ken, as a social scientist, I felt this war was going to be won by the middle class. You know, when we take elections, especially in every major city in the country, election results are determined by the middle class in Accra, in Cape Coast, in Kumasi, in Koforidua, all the big places. So when Ken Ashibe's group took over the fight, I thought, this is what we needed, or this is what we need. And I still believe this is what we need. But I have Ken here, and I'm not really sure where the fight is now, whether Ken is retired or is giving up, or, you know. But then I think we need to go back. We need to go back to, you see, the period where Ken and his group took over the fight was possibly the best time in the era of Galamsey, where a certain level of awareness was created, that people really wanted to do something about it. And then ever since, we haven't seen anything again. So it is important that we go back to the fight and be led by we the people. If we say we are waiting for government, the institutions that are either struggling to do what they have to do, and the kind of problems that they are facing from those they are fighting, then it might be a case now that we the people take over, and we the people must be represented by the middle class.
How do we take over as a people, you'd say?
Well,
when the Forestry Commission guards are being attacked in these forest reserves, how would the ordinary person take over this fight?
Well, we the people need to take over by holding our leaders responsible. Holding our leaders responsible. I mean, we do have two former ministers here. Honorable Hussein is here, Honorable Frimpong Boateng is here. They've all been in these positions before. When they were there, these problems were there. And for some reason, they have become vocal after they left office. Right? I'm not saying they didn't do anything, but what it means is when people like them are in office, something stops them from being vocal. Well, it might not be true, but then at least we have seen instances where some of the advocacy that Professor Frimpong is doing, you weren't doing it when you were a minister.
Okay.
We never saw you with your video showing us...
Prof is getting the microphone to show you...
some of the things that he had seen.
Okay.
But then it is important we do some of these things.
And that's to Yunus Afuseni as well, both of them.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yes, and all people in government. Yeah.
Were you that vocal? Were we seeing you doing presentations you're doing today?
It depends upon what you mean. I mean, for example, I made presentations in cabinet on several occasions. I made presentation to the Council of State.
I'm sure he's talking publicly to the people whom you are accountable to.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you're in government, you can't just...
Exactly, that's the point I made.
No. You can't, without talking to the president and the ministers of cabinet, you just can't go to any... So, Council of State, there was a conference of security ministers in West Africa. I made a presentation, several fora, you know. But then, you are not trying to see what you are seeing. For example, I was a minister, chairman of a committee. I get information from a chief that the people around the forest reserve cannot go to the farm because they will be harassed by Chinese and macho men and so on. So we take our task force there, including Erastus. And you go there and you see a group of illegal miners, 17 or 14 Chinese, being given security by regular soldiers and policemen. I'm the chairman. We've taken a decision. You go there and you see these people. The defense minister is a member of the committee, interior minister. So how did people get there? And then whilst you are there, some very powerful man tells you, leave them because this. Look, right now, there are 5 court cases against me because the report that I wrote and so on mentions certain names. And now I'm in court because of that. Now, if we look at Forestry Commission, they have a big problem. The former chief executive gave permission for 47 miners to enter forest reserves. And as soon as you enter, why are they entering? They enter, they start digging for anything without going through the process that Dr. Kone was saying. Are you going to a mineable area? What is the area? So they just go and start digging. So the thing is that their hands are bound. People, powerful people in the party, in the society, in the government, when I say party, all the parties in Ghana.
Both NDC, NPP, CPP,
yes,
all of them.
All of them. And rich people who have power and influence, they are behind. And Forestry Commission, CEO, whatever, you can't do anything, So this is where we are now. Okay. But it's a human problem.
If you were this vocal,
well, maybe he was not listening.
Half of our problems would have been
Maybe
solved.
when I was in the office, he was not listening.
Okay.
Doctor, you were not listening.
Maybe you weren't loud enough.
I was very loud. I was loud to the extent that I was the only minister who was able to deport more than 5,000 Chinese from Ghana. In fact, I threatened to arrest the head of the immigration office because they were given visas on arrival to Chinese and renewing them. I have always been in no doubt. You see, probably we've forgotten where we are coming from, like Batra Isi has said, that this fight started gaining momentum when people like Kenashbe came in. I remember clearly that the first time I posted Ofin as it was and Ofin now, even your radio station thought that that was fake. And they said that that was fake. So people do not, and in Parliament, when I went to Parliament to convince my colleagues that it was important that we rose up and did something about Galamsey, a very senior member of Parliament, now a minister, thought that I was over-exaggerating the situation.
Who is that?
Katie Hammond.
Okay.
And said what Wasa Samine said, that, my grandfather and ancestors were doing Galam. He didn't know the Galamsey we were talking about. It is only through pictures like Rasmus and that is bringing out the dangers, and probably, Doctor, now you understanding. Because if you don't go to the Galamsey sites and you are in Accra, you will never appreciate, and the pictures don't come to you. Okay. You will never appreciate what we're talking about.
Let's not leave those on Zoom out of the discussion. I'll come to Professor Sampini as well. There are views that I'm going to try and take views from everyone in here, but we have Dr. Albert Kwabena-Mensah, a research scientist. He's joining us via Zoom, and also Stanley Mate also joining us from COP via Zoom as well. Dr. Kwabena-Mensah, if you can hear me, maybe you can unmute at this point, and let's quickly hear you on your thoughts on this. At least you're a scientist as well. How dire is the catastrophe against our environment, you'd say?
And said I needed to be around. So I wanted to find out which.
Yeah, thank you so much. But there's a feedback.
We can hear you loud and clear now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've been listening to the conversations, and it's quite interesting. Some of us, we are scientists, so when we meet, we talk about data, because it is data that we can only, it is only data that someone cannot refuse to listen. So the theme for this particular dialogue is about devastating effect of illegal small-scale mining, and it's also about Erastus's video. Erastus's video talks more about heavy metals, so I would like to talk about heavy metals, because that is what the video talks about. So when we talk about heavy metals, what are they? Heavy metals are those elements whose atomic number is more than 20. And they have a density of more than 5 grams per centimeter cube. And they are usually in the periodic table found as transition elements. If you don't understand this, don't worry. The most important thing is that I will break some things down for you to understand.
Please do,
so,
please.
Now, these heavy metals, why are they of a problem? Because they are supposed to be found in trace amount. When we say trace amount, that means that they are supposed to be found in a specific threshold. So when you go above that particular threshold, then they become a problem. So because of this, there are two main essential groups of heavy metals. What is called the essential heavy metals, then the non-essential heavy metals. Now, the non-essential heavy metals are those ones that are not needed by humans in any form, like arsenic, like mercury, like lead, and like cadmium. They are not needed by humans in any form. So when they go above even 0.1 or 0.0 milligram per liter in water, it becomes a problem. Now, there are also essential heavy metals. Those essential heavy metals are those ones that are needed by plants, and they are also needed by humans and animals in their metabolism. Examples are zinc. Another example is iron. Another example is aluminium. Other examples is copper. Now, these ones are essentially needed by plants for various biochemical processes in the body. So those ones are usually high. So when you measure something like zinc, usually zinc has a very high value, usually because plants and human beings need them in those quantities. But then they shouldn't go above a specific threshold. When they go above a particular threshold, they become a problem. Now, how do we take interventions against these heavy metals? Now, we are supposed to take interventions against heavy metals because they present ramifications and they present public health threat to humans. Like mercury is associated with kidney diseases, deformities in unborn babies. Arsenic is also related to things like buruli ulcer and other lesions of the skin. Then other ones like copper, for instance, is associated with Wilson disease. It's associated with Wilson disease. So, and the Wilson disease comes about when the person experiences tremors in the hand or the affected body. Then other ones like manganese and so forth, they all cause problems when they are above certain limits. So that is why we have to take measures to sort of regulate their activity or regulate their concentration. So when it comes to guidelines, that's why countries have guidelines. Internationally, we have something called trigger action value. So when you have trigger action value, that means that it is the concentration at which you have to take action. That is the trigger action value. Then we have the maximum allowable concentration. That is the free range which the element is supposed to be.
Okay.
For instance, arsenic is supposed to have a maximum allowable concentration of 20 to 50 milligram per kilogram. Then there's another one which is called the world global average. So like arsenic, for instance, the world soil global average is 6.8 milligram per kilogram. But then these heavy metals, I want to establish something here. The heavy metals, sometimes we measure them using the total concentration method. And the total concentration method may underestimate the problem. For instance,
I'll need you to break it down a bit for us, really. In terms of what is going on now, we all did chemistry. Most of us have forgotten the chemistry that we did. But really, in terms of these metals, how dangerous are they to us if we come into contact with them, if we are drinking the water polluted with these metals? What really will happen to us, you would say?
So for instance, the problem is that we can come into contact with these heavy metals via inhalation. Okay, when we inhale and the air is polluted with the metal, example is mercury. Another way we can come to contact with is when we play with them, with these metals in contaminated field. Like you see children, I have a video here where children are playing on contaminated field. So they come into dermal contact with the child. Then it can also come into contact with us when we orally ingest. We call it oral ingestion through orally eating the soil or deliberate eating of soil. When we say deliberate eating of soil, we see pregnant women eating soil to obtain things like iron or some essential nutrients.
Is it the
and that is called geophagy.
Okay.
And we are very much aware of this.
Okay. Well,
We are very much aware of this. When
we seem to be having a poor connection to
Can I go on?
Dr.